So when last we left Girl Squad, the party, they had just made it back to the Nashville Inn for the night, along with Velius. So Velius has gone off in his separate room, and of course he's going to stay there with his brother. So the party turns in, um, and this time, not only they've been having these shared dreams, this time they actually individually have uh, their own dream, and I'm going to start with Devia for this one. So, an open book lays before Devia. This book is filled with little short stories. Each of these short stories represents 1 year of a person's life. It tells about what they've been through, how things have changed, how their perspective has changed, the new people they've met, old people they've had to let go, how they have changed as a person or stayed the same. And each of these little short stories connect and interact with each other to form one larger story. As all the words combine, they form a collage. And the collage is an image of Devia. So that was Devia's dream. Rowan's goes like this. A blank canvas lays before Rowan. As she approaches, the canvas starts to fill in with different colors and shapes. In the center of the canvas is Rowan. Surrounding Rowan is different kinds of animals, frogs, birds, bunnies, dogs, and surrounding them is a giant open field with a forest on one side and a lake on the other. And after a few minutes, the painting starts to change, and she starts seeing the old animals around her fade away, and new ones take their place, each one a little different than the last, and each one just as happy as the last. So that's Rowan's dream. And lastly, we have Taviri, and her dream goes like this. A giant boulder stands before Taviri. As she goes to strike the boulder, each strike is harder than the next. Every time she strikes the boulder, it forms an image. The first image is an orc. The second image is that of a wolf. Then the image turns into a bandit. And as she goes to strike the boulder a fourth time, the boulder takes the shape of her brother. So after that, the boulder then reforms and turns into an image of Taviri. And the image of the boulder, the image of her, sorry, it actually shows her being weighed down, carrying the boulder on the back of her wings, and engraved into the boulder all the things that are basically holding her down. So that's how Taviri dream. That's how her dream goes. So after this, the party they wake up. Kind of take note that they didn't share a dream tonight. But regardless, they wake up Zeke. They have some breakfast the next morning, and they decide, okay, let's go back. Let's try to find Bjorn and Prism. They pretty quickly assume they'll cut through Beargost, but they pretty quickly assume they're going to be at the Friendly Arm Inn. So decide to head all the way up north, which I don't remember the specifics of time right now, but it takes them a while. Not a day's journey by any means, but probably roughly like at least probably 12 hours, maybe longer. So they head north and pretty much stick to the main roads along this journey. They kind of chat a little bit with Zeke. And once again, Devia is kind of telling Zeke, the party in general are telling him this, but mainly Devia, that, if he, that if he tries anything, he's gonna regret it. So they finally make it back to the Friendly Arm Inn. They enter, and the main inn itself, sorry, and they see Thomas. Of course, Thomas greets them warmly, and they enter in the main chamber, and they see Bjorn and Prism. So immediately, Taviri and Rowan, they both go up to each of them. They give them a hug and greet them warmly, and Taviri kind of greets them as well. So they start talking to Bjorn and Prism, kind of seeing how they are, how they're doing, and they notice Prism this time. He kind of is looking a lot more, I guess you could say, a lot more capable as a quote unquote adventurer, and he has a little bit better gear on, not extravagant by any means, but somewhat of an improvement. So they start talking to the two of them, and they notice, of course, Zeke is with them, and Taviri especially talks to Bjorn, and she, tries to convince him, you know, to try to take Zeke under his wing as well. So the three of them can be their own squad essentially. So after some debating and some convincing, uh, Bjorn does agree, and also because he likes Taviri, um, to take Zeke under his wing. So um, because it takes the party so long to get there, they actually decide that they're gonna stay the night at the Friendly Arm Inn. So they actually have some food and some drinks with the guys, and then they turn in for the night. This time they don't have any other dreams. So the next morning they wake up. They uh, leave Zeke with Bjorn and Prism. They tell their goodbyes to them, and they before they leave the actual inn, the party starts talking to Thomas, the innkeeper. And what was funny in this session, I want to say, yeah, it was Devia that just kind of out of nowhere uh, was basically asking Thomas if he had any kind of secret compartments with like any items that he had stashed away, just in case that Devia was interested in. And it's funny because I had the player that plays Devia do I want to say it was either like an insight or persuasion check, regardless. And uh, the player actually rolls really high on this, and it was funny because I've been saving this for a while. It hadn't come up till now, but he did have actually a secret stash just in case, and so Thomas, with not too much convincing, actually has pulls out this kind of drawer behind where his counter is, and as he pulls it out, I think he had a couple of potions in there, but what he mainly had in there was magical bow. Yeah, I'm losing my words. It's also late, but still. Um, and he he doesn't outright give it to Devia, but he does sell it to her. And the bow in particular, let me pull this up really fast, is actually has a special name to it called Ripper, and it's actually a +2 longbow. And the actual description of it that I had was that this longbow was one of many made by a half elven craftsman whose name has been lost to history. And at one time there had been several hundred in use, a favorite of scouts who patrolled the forgive me on this name, the Anarak Desert, but many have been lost or destroyed. Only a few are still known to exist, and obviously this is one of them. So Devia really likes this bow, so she obviously buys it from him and takes it. And the party, after this, they decide they're going to head out for the morning, and as they're kind of in the courtyard of the Friendly Arm Inn, they decide that, okay, let's go track down those bandits in the Cloakwood Forest. They decide they're gonna go to the Hunters Guild first, and basically stop at the Hunters Guild before they enter in the Cloakwood Forest. So they head out to the west, and they make it to the Hunters Guild no problem. They greet Deacon, Ignis, and Sarah. And specifically, Devia and Rowan while they were here, they decide to stock up on more arrows and any special arrows that Ignis had. And then afterwards, they headed out from the Hunters Guild and entered in the Cloakwood Forest. So, as they're entering in the Cloakwood Forest, just, obviously it's a forest, but picture it's like really thick. And not too long after they get into it, just imagine a lot of spider webbing just kind of all throughout this forest. It's covering everything. So they enter in, and I know I can't show you right now or anything like that, but the actual area that the party kind of has to go off of, or kind of go through, is pretty large. And they don't know where this bandit camp is. So they just kind of start, walking their way through the forest. They start actually going through they start going west through the forest. And as they start going west, pretty much each space they move, I actually had them roll to see if they encounter anything. For the most part, they got pretty lucky on their rolls. But they actually came across, at one point as they were going through this forest, looking for this bandit camp, that they came across, they were actually ambushed by, they were ambushed by a few spiders. So, I'm probably going to just fly through this, and forgive me, but they actually take out the spiders, pretty easily. If anything, I want to say it was Taveri that actually got a little bit injured. But for the most part, the spiders were took out easily. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Rowan in particular, she's gotten really good with her bow, her Hunter's Mark, and her Colossus Slayer. I think that's what it is, her those abilities. So it's kind of like during this part of the campaign, this is where it kind of starts, that Rowan has just become this destroyer of single targets. And we kind of joke now, session-wise, that every time she goes to fire an arrow and release it, it's like starts this blender noise or something silly, But so they take out those spiders, and they keep trying to search for this bandit camp. And Rowan decides, okay, that let's not keep going blindly into this forest. She's gonna roll see if she can, look around to see if she finds any tracks. And she does a survival check. She rolls really high, and come to find out, she does find the faintest bit of tracks leading off to the east. So they were going in the completely wrong direction. But so they start heading east, and from what they could tell, track-wise, it looked to just be what looked like just one pair of tracks, just looked like one person. So they start heading east, and as they're going along in the forest, they don't actually encounter any more spiders, but a few sessions back, they had heard about a wyvern in the forest. And I had the party do a few perception checks for this, and I want to say especially Rowan noticed this as well. But as they're going through, they notice off towards the north of them is this cave. What looked like this in the distance, what looked like a cave. And Rowan noticed some kind of what looked like scratches or markings on the cave. So they quickly deduced that, okay, that's got to be where the wyvern's hanging out. So let's take note of that. We'll come back to that. So they keep going on. Rowan, using her skills, follows these tracks. And eventually they come out to this clearing in the forest with this structure the structure in question, it's really just picture just kind of like a wooden makeshift fence kind of going alongside, uh, or no, it was both sides. I'm sorry. It was both sides. It's just kind of going around, making this miniature fort. So the three of them kind of hang back. Devia and Rowan decide, okay, we're gonna move just a little bit closer, get in position with our bows, and Taveri is actually gonna fly up and see what she notices. So she flies up towards the top of the wooden structure. Um, I had to roll stealth, and as she gets to the top, she notices four bandits right below her, kind of camped out. And as to the north of them is what looks like some kind of structure. Well, I mean, obviously. Uh, More specifically, it's what looks to be like the entrance to some mines. Um, so after taking note, she kind of looks back towards Devia and Rowan. She kind of gives a signal, and she actually comes down on top of these four bandits and starts, going at it with her fists and quarterstaff. And Devia and Rowan, they release their arrows and start attacking these bandits. And as the battle ensues, there's actually one more bandit that comes from the other side of another wall that's right near that mining entrance that kind of swings around, and he starts also attacking the party. And Rowan, again, being the destroyer of single targets, kills one of the bandits easily. And because they've, have been leveling, some obviously, Devia had recently just came across or just received this one of her spells, Animate Dead. I think that's what it was. And so, actually, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So she actually raises one of the corpse of the one that Rowan just took out, and basically controlled it as her own, and it starts attacking the others in turn. And slowly but surely, they quickly take down 4 out of the 5 bandits, and Devia just keeps, casting Animate Dead, and now she, in conclusion, has all 4 of those bandits that went down are now her like undead servants essentially. So there's basically one bandit left. And they, instead of killing the bandit just yet, they capture it. They capture him, and they tie him up. And Devia decides, okay, I'm gonna cast Charm Person on this person. I'm on this bandit. God. And so she goes to cast Charm Person, and I don't know what was up with this, but this was kind of funny, but also bad for just the players in general. But I started rolling nat 20 after nat 20 after nat 20, at least 3 times in a row. Just rolled 3 nat 20s in a row as Devia is trying to cast Charm Person on this bandit. So the player and in character as well is getting really frustrated. So he just keeps trying it until he's going to just run out of spell slots, but he doesn't care at this point. But he eventually, I eventually rolled low enough to where he fails his wisdom save. He casts Charm Person and actually decides, I'm not even going to take the time to question him. I'm just going to leave him. And I want to say eventually, because it's late, I forgot to mention this, but it's actually when they do this assault on this bandit camp, it starts to get pretty late, so they decide they're going to actually take a rest outside this mine. So they decide that they're just going to leave him tied up, and they are going to rest for the night. And in I'm sorry. They do rest, but it actually wasn't quite as late as if I remember correctly. Because that's right. I'm sorry. They do rest, but after they rest, it's actually 10 p.m., roughly 10 p.m. that night. So they, DB again, I think the animate dead is still going. Yeah. So she doesn't have to recast it, but so she still has her bandit buddies, essentially. And they decide, okay, we're gonna, after resting up, they leave the other bandit just kind of tied up there. And they decide, okay, let's check out these mines. Let's go in. So they start to descend deeper. And as they descend deeper, they notice, in particular, at the walls, they notice it's what looks to be like an old dwarven place. And that's where we're going to end this video. Thanks for watching.